Aloha everyone, I'm Ruby Aliasen, your orientation leader for today's session. UH Manoa Library Services. Before we get started, I'll be covering some housekeeping items for today's webinar. First, you should be able to hear me clearly. If you cannot, please note in the chat box so we may troubleshoot with you. Simple fixes include connecting your audio on the Zoom window, turning up your computer volume, or using external headphones. Second, please utilize the Q&A function if you have questions for the presenters about what was shared. For most sessions, all questions will be saved for the end of the presentation. Additionally, participants in the chat will be asked to be respectful of others and stay focused on the topic of the webinar so that those with questions can easily be seen. Finally, after this session, we'll be uploading the recording of this webinar to the Visitays platform in the video section. All recordings will have closed captioning. Now I would like to welcome and introduce today's presenters, Malia Van Hoeklem, Archivist for University Records, Helen Wong-Smith, Archivist for University Records, Jonathan Young, SciTech Librarian, Clem Gunthrow, University Librarian, and Jean Thulag. And with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Mr. Gunthrow.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to new students and their families. It's delightful for you to join us this morning. Let's to advance. In my presentation, there we go. So hello and welcome. We're really excited for you to be joining the Rainbow Warrior family. Here's a lovely group of students. Here's the library. There's only one library on campus, and called Hamilton Library, and it's pretty big and pretty hard to miss. The library website, and Brian Richardson will be talking more about the library website and how you navigate that. So what sort of library can you expect from UH Manoa? Well, it's somewhere between the very traditional library with lots of books, of which we have, and the Star Wars library of the future. We have very large collections. 240,000 ebooks, lots of electronic journals, access to millions of digitized books from major research libraries, and a lot of printed books in the building, 2.5 million to be exact. We have very stellar collections that support research into Hawaii and the Pacific Islands, as well as all of the Asia regions. There is a university archives and manuscripts, and you'll be hearing later from Helen on that. And there are a couple of other departments, business, humanities, social sciences, and science and technology, all with really great collections that help support your work. And there are spaces for you to work and to study, and there's technology available. There's a Click computer lab with about 80 computers. There are laptops and Wi-Fi hotspots that you can borrow. There's space to study across 8 different floors. You can borrow books from other libraries, and you can request books from other libraries as well as journals. But even more importantly, there are people here to help you. There are 27 subject librarians that provide expert help, and you can get help via chat, via email, and even during COVID, in person. And there are a number of people who help borrow materials from other libraries, and we do borrow materials from all across the world. And the computer lab have lab assistants who can help you with the technology piece. And now we're going to turn it over to Brian. You're going to have to share your screen, Brian.
Yeah.
And Brian's going to talk about the website.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to just give you a very quick, 2 or 3 minute, which will probably be 5-minute overview of the website, which is essentially the portal to almost all of the resources that we make available to you. Actually, all the resources we make available. And it's very complicated. I mean, Hamilton Library is a, the university is an R1 university. It's a huge institution. The Hamilton Library is probably the biggest building on campus. There are 2 buildings, 5 floors each, plus basement. And there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of collections, there's a lot of materials, a lot of resources. And so the website is your portal to that. And I would suggest if you bookmark anything, bookmark this page because it's where you get to stuff. In particular, just to give you a few highlights here, one of them is this white box in the middle here, which is OneSearch, which is our big general finding aid. It brings together the physical material that we have in the library, plus a lot of the ebooks. We have thousands of ebooks, and a lot of the articles and so on that we make available. So you get access to, as Clem was saying, maybe 3 million physical items, millions and millions of articles and so on, all in one big search. Now, it's not the only search, and this is one of the things to realize is that it covers a lot of stuff, but it's not everything. And as you go through your time at the university, your information needs are going to become more and more sophisticated. Google will not work for most of what you want to do here, and so you're going to end up needing also the more specialized database. And so that's the link down here on the bottom right. We subscribe to over 400 specialized databases. You'll see some examples here. So there's some in anthropology, some in business, some in social sciences in general, some in the natural sciences and law and so on and so forth. And typically what you'll do with a search is you'll use OneSearch first, and then you'll go to your specialized databases. Or it depends what you're doing. Because everyone is doing different things. But just keep in mind that, that database link really hides hundreds and hundreds of very specialized scholarly material. And that's one of the things to keep in mind when you start using the website is that, I would encourage you, if you don't have one already, to get a public library card because they have a tremendous amount of resources. But we're different. I mean, this is a scholarly library. We have a different collection and a lot of stuff that's really there to support you for your scholarship, for your research, for your time at the university. The next one I want to point out quickly is the research guides here. Again, hundreds and hundreds of them. They're all organized by subject. One of the great things about this is that they're created by librarians at the University of Hawaii, which means that they're localized to the kinds of topics that come up at the university. And they're also, they're aware of the resources we have, plus also the resources in the community. And so, for instance, if you look at architecture, there will be things on landscape, there'll be things on particular classes, so landscape architecture, history, and so on, and regional and urban planning, so on and so forth. And maybe click on one of these, you'll see that this is created by Dave Breyer, who's one of the librarians in business, humanities, and social sciences, and so on and so forth. And there are a lot of them. Right? And so that's one of the ways that you can get access to reliable resources. And I think that's one of the big problems facing scholarship in general is that it's easy to find resources. It's harder to find better ones or reliable ones or credible ones or however you want to talk about. Okay, then the last thing I want to point out here, just in the bottom, are the learning skills. This is a relatively new page, and what we've put here are a variety of fairly quick, under 10-minute kind of videos, just giving you an overview of various aspects of the library. There's an overview of the Hamilton Library homepage, which I'm kind of doing now, but this takes a little more time. And then some of the services and so on, how to find ebooks, and on and on. One of the ones I want to point out, though, and this is kind of an extension of the library itself, which is one of the things that I would really encourage you to learn and to download and get to use is a bibliographic management program. Which is a highfalutin term, but basically it allows you to manage your materials so that if you download articles and you take notes and so on, and then it also helps you do your bibliography and your citations and things like that. We have some videos here that I've put together on Zotero, which is a free bibliographic management program. There are some other ones as well. EndNote and Mendeley are two of the other fairly common ones. In a sense, it doesn't matter which one you use. 95% of it seems to be about the same anyway. But use one of them because it's one of these things where when I'm teaching Zotero classes, to fourth year or graduate level students, they say, "Oh, I wish I had known that before." So keep in mind, that it's something to learn early rather than later, I guess. And in 4 years, I can say I told you so. All right. And then we have things like films on demand. There's a lot of video. We have a huge DVD collection, tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands, I don't know. A lot of DVDs, and a lot of them are not sort of Netflixy kind of DVDs. They're much more, it's much more scholarly, much more diverse, and things that you wouldn't find otherwise, probably. And then just the other things up here, just to point out on the website. One of them is, as Clem said, there's 27 subject librarians. Mine is the College of Education. We all have our specializations. Get to know that librarian. But if you look under the help menu here, there's the subject librarians, and then all of the different topics are listed. So that if you're doing agriculture, you would talk to Patricia. If you're doing astronomy, you would talk to Jonathan, and so on and so forth. The other one along the top, which I'm not sure if someone else is going to give more details on, but this is the link to the Interlibrary Loan page. We don't have everything, and if you need anything for your research, a book, an article, or whatever, the Interlibrary Loan Office is amazing, and they can get pretty much everything. It's free. You can do it as often as you want, but that's the link up here. And then there are others as well. One of the things that's not up here, and I'm going to close with this, is that we're working on creating a loanable technology collection, which is things like cables and chargers and things, but then we also have some green screens and some GoPro cameras and things like that, which hopefully will be online in the next 2 or 3 weeks or so. We'll see how that goes. It's progressing well. And with that, I'll stop and just point out that there's a lot more going on the website, but we won't go into it today, and look forward to your questions. Take care.
Okay, let's go back to presentation. And Jonathan.
Okay, I'm up. So hi, everyone. Good to talk to you all. My name is Jonathan Young. I'm one of the librarians in the SciTech department, Science and Technology, and specifically, I'm the Natural Sciences librarian. So if you're going to be studying biology, chemistry, physics, math, computer science, one of those, then I'm the librarian here in charge of helping you. But we have other librarians here as well for all areas of the sciences. With extensive experience in the sciences, many in backgrounds in sciences. I did my degree in biology. And so I know that, as in your early undergraduate classes, you're not going to be thinking about coming to the library and using our collections or our databases. Your world is going to be problem sets and textbooks, and you're going to be learning the basics of science, and that's totally okay. But that doesn't mean we can't still help you. As you've heard, we have many spaces. Next slide, please, Cam. And the SciTech area is way in the back of the library. So, you heard that we have 2 buildings, but there's actually only 1 entrance. So you'll have to come in through the front of Hamilton Library. You go way in the back to what's called the addition. And on the first floor, that's where the science and technology reference area is. It has a lot of great study spaces surrounded by, the wisdom of our books. But it's very secluded compared to other parts in the library. Some people like that, but we also have collaboration areas where you can talk a little louder, work on your problem sets together. And one thing I really want to emphasize are our presentation practice rooms. We have 2 of them. They're equipped with projectors and whiteboards, and you can reserve them for several hours and work together on your presentations, your problem sets. Things are always better in a group study situation. Things are obviously in flux because of COVID, but you're going to be here for years, and they'll be there for you. It beats working in a group in a cramped dorm room. When I was here at UH doing my PhD, I made extensive use of these presentation practice rooms, and I highly recommend them. And they're right there next to our reference desk. If you have questions, you can come right out and ask. Next slide, Clem. But eventually, after your first few years, and even in the sciences, you're going to be having to engage with the research world, our journal articles, our books, and I highly encourage you then to remember to come and talk to us. You can find us either through the About page on the library webpage, or you can Google, UH Manoa Library SciTech is the word that'll get you to there. Next slide, Clem. And you'll see our librarians there. What I want to emphasize is that we offer consultation services. Many students don't realize this, that we will meet with you one-on-one, for an hour if need be. So as you're starting your thesis in science, as you're starting any research papers, come make an appointment with us. We're happy to meet with you. We can show you all these databases that I'm sure you've never heard of yet. There's a whole world of them out there. We'll show you where to go. We'll show you how to organize your papers. We can help you in all these ways. Not a lot of students know we do this. The few that do, they really get ahead. I hope you'll be one of them in the coming years. So thank you. I hope to see you around.
And now over to Malia.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. And I'm excited to talk to you about some of our special collections and archives here at the library. Just like Jonathan said, we are here to help you, and special collections and archives can be a little bit more mysterious if you've never used them. And you don't really find them until you get to something like a big research library, where we have rare books, we have different archival collections. There are many, and so the example I have on screen is the Jean Charlot collection. This is the collection that I manage, along with several other archives of Hawaii artists and architects. And so if you're being asked to do primary source research, you want to seek out these resources within the library. And we are here to help you, no matter what level you are, whether you've never been in before. They do work a little differently. The books will be in the library catalog, but the archival collections are going to be in finding aids. And some of those are online, and some of them haven't made it online yet. So be sure to get in touch and ask us what's available. If you go to the library website, there's a tab for research, and look for collections, and there'll be little collection descriptions there. There's the Hawaii Pacific collection, has its own reading room, and so does the Archives and Manuscripts Department. And my colleague Helen will be talking about that in a minute. Some of these collections don't circulate at all, so that's why they have dedicated reading rooms. You may be asked to sign in and put things in a locker. And that's because some of these things are unique, one-of-a-kind things that can't be found anywhere else in the world. For now, some of these collections are going to be by appointment only. So you see the Charlot reading room is quite small, and I do have other people helping me, students and processing archivists. So we're trying to control the number of people to keep everyone safe. So if you have questions about Hawaii's art and architects, please do come see me, get in touch. And I want to also mention that there's a tremendous amount of artwork installed across the campus. It's a beautiful campus that's planted as an arboretum. And there's public art inside and outside of buildings. And the Buildings and Grounds Department has done a campus art map, and I'll put up a link to that in a minute in the chat. The other thing is, if you want to seek out big murals by Jean Charlot, who was a famous artist whose reading room we have here, there's works in Bachman Hall. That is the university's administration building. Unfortunately, it's under construction right now. It's getting a facelift, and that might be for the next year. But there's also Saunders Hall. There's a beautiful ceramic tile mural by him there. And there's another big mural in the stairwell at the East West Center's Jefferson Hall. So if I can help you find any of these resources, or if you want to learn more about Hawaii art and architects, please get in touch. Thank you.
And now over to Helen.
Aloha mai kako. So I'm the archivist for university records. However, our department, that's just one of the various collections in our department. It's the university records that not only has the official records of the administration and different units, but it also has we contain faculty records. So that can be a true breadth of topics. So I have faculty papers covering soil, soil pesticides, and one faculty was just saying how he developed a way to prevent kalo from being infestated from pink snail, all the way to planning records and so on. So this is just a little bit, these are posters I had developed to show you the breadth of our collection. On the far left is Chief Justice Richardson when he was a student at UH. The second one is the engineering open house that they have annually. The third one is a Peace Corps volunteer reading a Fijian newspaper. And then the last is a picture from our 442nd, the Japanese veterans collection. So we're made up of university records, the manuscripts that has many of those 442nd and other very diverse collections. We recently reacquired AIDS and same-sex marriage in Hawaii in the manuscripts collection. And then last but not least is the congressional records. So I'm going to show you a little bit about navigating to this so that based on what Brian showed you, you go to research and then collections. And lucky us, we are the very first to show up on the list. And then you can see a little bit about each one. And so let's go to the congressional papers collection. And remember the difference between archives and the rest of the libraries, that archives usually specialize in unpublished materials. So these are all primary resources. Nobody has interpreted it for you. You get to see the actual record that was done for whatever particular purpose, whether it's a report on racism at the university, or if it's something regarding student groups or anything at all. So this is the landing page. And then some of the records have been digitized. Our congressional archivist is working very hard. She has lots of support to digitize the Danny Noy collection. So this as well, she also has subject guides that were pointed out to you earlier. And so this is just another way you can research them. The university archives and manuscripts collection, along with the other archival collections in the library, put our materials, our descriptions, our resources into this database. It's called Archive Space. And so it's a little bit different from that homepage that Brian showed you. And then you can put a term in here and the records that show up, and these are the finding aids that were mentioned earlier. So you can see that there's going to be a lot of information out there, almost to the point of Google results. So that's why you want to go ahead and contact us, because archives are described a little differently from library resources, and you'll be able to, you'll get a lot of benefit to discussing with us the research topic or even a personal topic. So we do a lot of information, a lot of people contact me regarding personal interest. So this is some of the information that we have online, but we do have different hours from the rest of the library. So as Malia mentioned, you know, a lot of times it's by appointment. We do have separate reading hours ourselves that are open. They'll be listed on the site. And then you can walk in, of course, but it's always really good to email one of us so that you can discuss what you're interested in, because we will know, like Malia mentioned, not everything is in the catalog. We will know of collections that have information, resources that will help you with your topic. So you guys are so lucky. When I was in your place, in your shoes in 1977 as a freshman, these were not available to us. So now you have all of this available at your fingertips, and the benefit of talking to us ahead of time so that when you do come into the archives, which is even further away than Jonathan's section, we're on the 5th floor of the annex. So feel free to contact us at any time. And if you have any questions, I have the easiest email in the world, smith@hawaii.edu. Okay, mahalo.
Thank you, Helen. And over to Jean.
Okay, hi everybody, well welcome. I am the Access Services Librarian and I run the department that helps you check in, check out books, keep the books on the shelf in the right order. We also take care of interlibrary loan, and Ryan mentioned that even if the 300 million books and the thousands and thousands of pages of digital journals, we don't have what you need, we can get it throughout the world through our interlibrary loan. And sometimes those will come as electronic files we'll post to your library account, so you don't even have to come to the library. And sometimes it'll be whole books mailed from other libraries. Recently, libraries are moving into what they call controlled digital lending. So they will scan a whole book and lend it to you online. You can't print it, but you can have it to read online for say 2 weeks or whatever the lending library decides is appropriate. We also take care of what's called course reserves. So when you get classes in a couple of weeks, you'll get a course outline and your instructor may say, oh, these books are on reserve in the library, I want you to read this chapter. Or they may put a link in your course outline that takes you over to some reading in a book or a journal, and you will click on it and it'll open into a reader and you'll be allowed to read it for 2 weeks or a month or whatever the instructor decides. And those are course reserves. So you will have those as well. We also take care of the microfilm collection, which was how we saved newspapers and journal articles and magazines before there were scanners. And so we have 2.5 million different pieces of microfilm, and we can show you how to use those if you're doing research or just interested in what was happening in the world a while ago. We also have AV equipment, because we do have videotapes and different kinds of film and records and cassettes that aren't streamed. And so you have to come in and use that equipment. So we can help you with that as well. We have a lot of students at the circulation desk. You'll see me out front. We are there to answer your questions. You can also ask questions, of course, as Brian and others explained. You can go online for chat ref and you'll do a live chat reference. Ask your questions, you can call us. We are here to help you. And as you've heard several times, the librarians here really want to help you. So don't be afraid of us, just come and ask us or email us and set up an appointment. We love to have students ask us questions. And we love to have you come into the library and use the resources. I think I need my next slide. So next, the first week of classes, we will have some information tables out front of the library. We encourage you to come in and take a look around and find maybe your favorite study place. Check out the group study rooms, which we plan to have open, and the practice presentation rooms. We have a few goodies. If you come by, you can pick something, just reusable straws, some notepads or whatever. So please come by, meet us. Check out the building and say hello to us.
So that brings us to the end of our presentation. We're really looking forward to meeting you, greeting you on campus or greeting you virtually. And we're certainly open to any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much. We'll get into the Q&A. So a lot of questions have already been answered, and I appreciate that. We just want to go through some of the answers just so that those who don't see the Q&A can also hear those answers as well. So an individual asked, can you speak again about Zotero? Is that how you recommend writing citations, or are there any other resources on citations? So there's some links for Zotero, and they can access through the website, the library website as well. So no need, if you can't see that link, it is on the website. And then also Brian Richardson has entered his email, which is Richards, RICHARDS @hawaii.edu. If you need additional assistance or want to talk about that. And it looks like they do have a variety of sources on how to cite. So they've listed some of the sources on their library essentials page. Did I hear somebody else chiming in for an answer? I didn't want to interrupt anybody. Okay, any other?
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I say something quickly?
Oh, sorry, let me turn off my mic. So the, yeah, I know a lot about Zotero, because I do the presentations and stuff, so I'll try not to go on about Zotero. But the, yeah, the biggest thing there is Zotero doesn't write your citations for you in a way. You still have, well, they do, it helps you write the citations, but it doesn't really, like you're still going to have to learn how styles work. And this is one of the things probably that's a shift from high school to university, is that writing proper citations becomes a lot more important. Tracking where you're getting your information and stuff. And Zotero is one of those tools, the bibliographic management tools. Very useful and it's free. So those are two good parts. There are two good aspects of it. But yeah, it's just a tool. It's not going to do all the work for you.
Well, we love a good free resource as well. So especially if there are resources in the library to help you understand how to properly use that resource as well. So encouraged to take advantage of that. There's an interesting question in here, especially for first-year students who aren't used to having this library on campus or all the resources that come in that. There's a question about, do people actually study in the library? Is it quiet? Are there separate spaces in the library that people use for quiet spaces? And I think it was covered, if I'm not mistaken, maybe in Brian's slides, you talked about study spaces, or Jonathan, I can't remember, study spaces. So when can students expect that they can use it? Is there restrictions on those spaces? How can they access those spaces?
Okay, well, we have designated some areas as quiet zones where it's expected you aren't having group discussions. There's group study rooms, although right now we're negotiating how many people in a room because of the COVID conditions, but we'll have some updated information on the website. If you look on the website, it does have a link for study spaces. So you can go in and take a look there. Let's see, what was the other part of the question? Yes, a lot of students study here, some in groups, some individually. There are areas where there's individual carrels and it's quieter. It has sides if you don't want visual distractions. Come in and find out a great place for you. If you need a window, find a place. There's just many options for study. Yeah.
There's seating for about 700 people.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. Are there some places that are more, I guess, active and louder, for lack of better words, than there are? What are those spaces that, you can converse with other students respectfully, but some spaces that are no talking? Are there spaces, let's maybe talk about the spaces where they can converse with other people freely.
Most of the spaces on first floor, you can talk freely, with respect to others. Third floor is a quiet zone. Let's see where else. Well, and on the first floor, you've got the addition side and the main side where you enter. So, throughout the spaces in the AV area, there's some open seating. You can go back in the corner there if you wanted to do a Zoom class. That's what I'm kind of hearing, getting questions also from faculty and students. Is it okay if I do my Zoom class while I'm in the library? And we're saying yes. We don't have private rooms for everybody, but we think we have enough space where you can find a corner to do your class. We have been asking people, though, to use headphones with built-in mics. And we actually ordered some. You can check out one. Say you forgot yours, you can come to the circulation desk and you can check one out for a few hours or however long in the day you need it. So we're trying to make that a little bit more user-friendly during these times.
That's great. Thank you, Jean. Let's see. And our study spaces, there was a question about study spaces and will they be reopened in the fall? So Brian responded that there is the plan to have them open starting in late August. Is there any additions to that response?
School starts on August 23rd. The library will be fully open. So.
Okay, perfect. And then an individual did ask about if they have to be vaccinated to come into library, but let's expand that a little bit more. What COVID guidelines are in effect in the library? What should students know or visitors to the library know about what they need to do if they come into the library?
Wear a mask that covers your face and nose. We will have hand sanitizers and wipes so you can sanitize your hands, wipe down the table if you want to. Respectfully keep social distance. We're not limiting necessarily one person per table because often people come in with their roommate and they're together outside of the building. It makes no sense to force them to separate tables inside the building, but keep it to a reasonable number. So we already know that there are people in the building who have been all over the summer who are not vaccinated. So as long as they're wearing a mask and practicing proper sanitation, we're perfectly okay with that.
Great. And as a reminder, everyone who comes on campus does need to do the daily Lumi site check-in. Do they ask for that at the entrance of the library to show that information at all?
No.
Okay. But still remember, it is required, even if the library is not asking for that. Many offices actually don't ask for it, but we do expect everybody to complete it.
Right. But there are some places on campus that will ask you for
correct.
that. So.
And you need your ID to come into the library. You have to scan it. So always bring your ID, which is also your library card.
Perfect. Let's see. Some of these questions you've already covered. Can somebody explain a little bit more about study carrels? And are they? There was a question specifically about first-year students, and the answer was provided that there are study areas. None are permanently assigned for incoming students, but there are a lot of study spaces. So, what is a study carrel, and are they assigned?
Yeah, study carrels are assigned for graduate students. They're like a little mini office, but they are for graduate level students only at this point in time.
And they get them for the whole semester.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a different kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's see, maybe there was a question about if a student is looking for a specific article or book, how long will it take for them to get it? Or how long does the process take? I wanted to actually focus a little bit on interlibrary loans. So I think that's a common question for students, like, oh, if this library doesn't have it, how can I get it? How long does that process take? Can somebody kind of give a general idea about that?
Sure. Interlibrary loan, if it's a book, we send out a request. The request usually goes out within 24 hours. And we have to, another library has to agree to send it to us. If it's an article, usually it'll come in as a scan and it'll take a couple days, and you'll get it as an email attachment or as an attachment in your account. Books take a little longer, depending again on which library it goes to, whether they'll fill it and then it has to be mailed. We also do intra-system libraries. So if you put in a request, we check, make sure it's not over in Hilo, or maybe Kauai has a copy, and then they mail it over here. So for ILL, it could be anywhere from a week to many weeks, depending on what it is, how rare it is, and which library is willing to send it. Articles are much more quickly. They're usually turned around within 2 days, 3 days. I think probably a week would be very reasonable.
And they all do that through their library account, is that right?
Yes.
And it's a free service. That's, we want to emphasize that as well. I mean, it's here to support your research.
One thing I didn't talk about earlier is our holds request. So let's say you want a book, but you don't have time to come in and look for it up in the shelves, or you know what you want. You can request right online through the website. Once you're logged into your library account for that book, then my staff goes and finds it on the shelves, brings it downstairs, and has it standing by for you. So to just come in, go to the circulation desk, show your ID, and check out your book, and off you go. So, we will also do that for articles. We will go up to the shelf, find the journal, scan it, and usually that turns around in 24 hours, and you'll have your article. So please take advantage of that too.
Sorry, Jean, I couldn't. How, if somebody gets an ILL book, do they just, when they're done, do they just give it back to you and you guys send it back? Okay. So they don't have to give it to Kauai directly. They just give it to you all. And then you send it. Okay, good.
Yeah. It's just like.
And then Helen, I had a question for you too, working with archives. What is the piece of archive material or artifact that you love the most?
That I love the most?
Favorite? Yes. What is your favorite?
I'll tell you, I've been in Hawaiʻi archives for 35 years more. I was thrilled to find in our Romanzo Adams Social Laboratory, which is a very well-known collection. And they conducted research in Hawaii. They used students to conduct the research, go back into their families, back into their communities to conduct this research, which would never pass IRB today. It was very, very personal. And so this is from the 1920s to 60s. And in it, I was able to identify an interview by a person who was a student. He was only 17 when he was at UH, but he interviewed his grandmother, who was the widow of a very prominent Hawaiian, and nobody had known about this collection, in this particular interview in this collection, because people didn't recognize the name Nawahi. And Joseph Nawahi was a very pivotal person in our history. So this extremely personal interview about his grandmother, talking about Hawaii politics, the overthrow, all of these different things, was just thrilling out of this collection. And then to show you the connection that we have with other archives in the islands and the world. We get a lot of international questions too. I was at the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, which is has the records of the Hawaii Volcano Observatory. So of course we have a lot of stuff regarding Thomas Jagger, who established Volcano Observatory. And I come to UH and we have his records there. And I know that the earliest records of the Hawaii Volcano Observatory went to Bishop Museum in the 1970s. So now we have records from his college days on the mainland, the records of classes that he taught at UH, and we collaborate that with the holdings of Hawaii Volcanoes National Park and Volcano Observatory over at the Bishop Museum. So these are thrilling finds for me.
I'd love to see the undergraduate information for somebody.
Oh, it's so personal.
Later became so important, right? It's so interesting for that. Malia, I actually have the same question for you too, also working with archives, if you could share.
Oh dear, I was hoping you weren't going to ask me that. I was so pleased that was sent to Helen, because it's so hard. There are so many amazing things. In the Jean Charlot collection alone, it's really hard to pick out the favorites. We have all of his diaries from 1922, when he was a Mexican muralist, spanning his career through New York and across the United States, teaching art, both art history and studio art. And then he came to Hawaii to do the Bachman Hall mural at our administration building, and he joined the faculty and stayed here the rest of his life. It's actually the longest period of his life, and he was born in France, so he had a long and productive career. There's over 100 sketchbooks. We have his master set of prints, and my background is art, so I I am drawn to the art in the collections, but we have incredible, he was his own archivist. And so he knew many famous artists and writers throughout the course of his career. And we have those letters, and he kept up an incredible correspondence with these people. So oftentimes scholars are coming to us not to look at Charlot, but to all the other artists and people that he worked with. So it's a real pleasure. I did want to circle back to that question about how long does it take to get an article or a book? Because I think the answer in the Q&A was it depends, because it depends whether you're physically on site. Once our library collections reopen, you're going to be able to go to the circulating books and pick out a book. So it's going to be a lot different than it's been for the last year and a half. And same thing with articles. Look for the databases on the library website and search for articles. So many of them are now available online. So it's instantaneous access once you find them. And if you have any trouble with that, just ask the librarian.
I would like to add, too, if you want to learn more about our collections, we hire a lot of students. And so you can get up close and personal with many different collections. So look on SEC and see what jobs are opening. The students, how many students?
Oh, sorry, Jean. That's a great pitch too, because many of these students maybe haven't heard of SEC or SECE, SECE yet. The library, I always recommend students look for positions in the library because it seems like such a great atmosphere to work, but also it seems like interesting, work study or work or whatever it may be. So SECE, we do have a session next week to learn more about that, but SECE is the student working positions website. So it sounds like there might be some library positions listed, or if there's not, keep an eye up there for being able to work with any of these wonderful professionals. So there was a question in there about how to work with Helen. So Helen, do you have anything else to add on that?
Yes, I'm sorry, I did not, I pressed the wrong button. I said I would answer this live. Yes, check on SeeKey because I've actually had a position that's been up for quite a few months that nobody has applied for. I often seek funding. I've had a couple of grants that will pay for students to work on specific collections. So there's a variety of ways. It's not just the regular funding, but also external funding as well. So there are ways, look on SeeKey, always look on SeeKey, or just contact me. And then knowing your interest, I can let you know when something is available that can have you work on it. And really, you're right. The library is the best place to work. I worked as a cashier in the bookstore. Oh, so I thought, oh, it's air conditioned. I'm not out, but it's, this is going to help you in your studies so much. You're with us every day. We know who, any topic that you have, any interest that you have, if we don't know the answer, we know exactly who to ask.
There was a question. Oh, go ahead.
And I'm sorry. And our university librarian bakes for us every Wednesday, and we're just so damn spoiled.
We have great snacks.
So you're guaranteed baked goods every week by the university librarian.
It's phenomenal. He is phenomenal. And so we'll be very sad when he goes on vacation.
There was a question that came up in another section about Sinclair. Is it still called Sinclair Library, or is it not a library in the system anymore?
So Sinclair Library is no longer a library. The building is still there. It's the Sinclair Student Success Center, though not part of the library, and it's going to be renovated starting a year from now.
So
but there is study space there.
Okay. And we do have services, as the university librarian pointed out. We do have services in that building, but then the library, the Hamilton Library, is the library on campus. Okay, perfect. Let's give it another minute or so. If anybody else has any other questions, go ahead and use the Q&A box. You can select for it to be inserted anonymously if you don't want us to see who sent it, but do know there's no bad questions when we're talking about the library. It's a motto we have here. So if you have questions, please enter them in. We'll give a couple more minutes. So any other questions that anybody has?
So while people are waiting, I'm going back to something that I said earlier. You know, for me, the big thing for the library is get to know the librarians and the staff. They are the key to your success. The collections are great, but it's really the people, the expertise of the librarians and staff that will help you be successful.
And they'll save you a lot of time.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. It looks like we are maybe to the end of our questions. So let's go ahead and Ruby will help us close this out.
Thank you guys, everyone, for joining this presentation today. We hope you gained some helpful information from our panelists. If you have further questions or questions that were not discussed, please email your orientation leader or nrwo@hawaii.edu for assistance. As mentioned, this webinar will be posted on the New Student Orientation Leader or New Student Orientation platform. So please visit that page for the recording, as well as links or documents mentioned by today's guests. Mahalo.